From the Horseshoe in Columbus, a top 15 matchup on a loaded Saturday of college football. It's the 12th ranked Spartans and the 13th ranked Buckeyes. A couple of teams coming off weeks that not a whole lot of people saw coming. This is very likely coming down to the leg of the freshman Matt Coughlin. From 34 for the win. Michigan State's improbable march continues to Columbus.
JT to throw. Good protection. Picked off. Pick six to start the game. Touchdown Iowa. Lobs it to the end zone and intercepted again. The Hawks 50-point. The Buckeyes.
So Ohio State tumbles to 13 in the college football playoff rankings, while Michigan State makes the biggest jump of the playoff era from 24 to 12. And these two teams tied to the top of the East Division standings. Winner takes control moving into the back end of the regular season. Welcome inside. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, Bruce Feldman joins us in a moment. Not sure either one of these teams thought that this game would mean what it does, but they've come in completely different directions to get here. And Ohio State thought that it would probably cruise to this point. Not been the case. Michigan State, Brady, coming off a 3-9 season. Nobody thought they'd be here.
Just a tremendous surprise for Michigan State as such a young team right now, being in contention for the Big Ten championship. But for Ohio State, an extremely disappointing loss. And it was really the culmination of a few things. They got out-coached, they got beat, and a lot of their man-to-man coverage. And JT Barrett, their quarterback, had arguably his worst game of the season last week. But none of that matters because they still have an opportunity to win the Big Ten championship.
You mentioned Barrett struggling the way he did. It was shocking. Have you ever seen a guy go from the high of highs against Penn State to what happened in Iowa City?
No, I mean, arguably 2 weeks ago versus Penn State, you could have made the case. He had a Heisman moment last week, the worst of his career, and it was really the decision-making. He had a guy open early, didn't like it, progressed through the rest of his reads, but unfortunately it was too late. And Amani Hooker ended up taking the opening play of the game to the house. And later on in the game, it became a little bit of desperation. They needed to have a big play down the field. He was forcing the football, and Josh Jackson, the cornerback for Iowa, just had a heck of a day. 3 interceptions on Barrett. It was a rough day, and I think he's going to be looking to try to gain some of that confidence back early on in today's game.
Try to get back to what he did the last time he played in this stadium, completing his last 16 throws in the come-from-behind win against Penn State. You know about JT Barrett. You're starting to know about Brian Lewerke, the quarterback on the other side.
Yeah, as the weather's gotten colder, the Arizona kid has gotten hotter the past 2 weeks. There's not a more prolific quarterback in college football, and it's really been not only his arm and some of the throws he's made, but his ability to buy time and scramble outside the pocket to make some of the bigger plays downfield.
Ready for kickoff. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, and on the field, Bruce Feldman.
Joe, Urban Meyer called it the perfect storm of factors that contributed to last week's blowout loss, and he's really challenged his talented defensive line to control this game. Defensive coordinator Greg Schiano was a bit more blunt. When we spoke to him yesterday, he said the mood of this team is very angry, very disappointed in ourselves, but we cannot let Iowa beat us twice. And what's going to make it a little harder? Starting linebackers Dante Booker and Jerome Baker, 2 of their leading tacklers, are sidelined with injury today. I'm told they suffered that last week at Iowa. So you're going to see Tuff Borland and Malik Harrison get the start for them.
With Chris Worley sliding outside for Greg Schiano and Urban Meyer. Ohio State won the toss, deferred to the second half, so Michigan State will get it to begin. 2 top 15 teams face it off, and off we go in Columbus. Connor Hayward watches this one bounce into the end zone, and the Spartans will begin to the 25-yard line. Led by the sophomore from Phoenix, Arizona, Brian Lewerke, who's the first quarterback in Michigan State history, Brady, to have back-to-back 400-yard passing games.
And how impressive is that, considering he's a first-year starter? Greg Schiano talked about being fast, not sneaky fast. Go back to a senior in high school, the guy almost rushed for 1,000 yards. He got labeled as a pocket passer. He can hurt you running the football. He's got a very quick release, and I talked about it in the open. He's elusive. He can buy time in the pocket to allow things to develop downfield.
You may not recognize these Spartans if you've not watched them in a while. They've thrown it more than anybody in the country the last 2 weeks. They begin with a quick throw to Cody White. He gets 4 yards. Damon Webb with a stop. And Bruce told us no Booker, no Baker. That's Malik Harrison, the sophomore making his first career start. That's also Tough Borland wearing 32, who did start 4 games earlier this year when Chris Worley was out. Worley moves outside where he's been for much of his career.
Yeah, he's got experience there. I think that's the key because that position's been one of the positions kind of targeted when you go back to last week and look at the struggles that Ohio State had trying to match up with the tight ends for Iowa.
2nd and 6 on the Spartans' opening drive. And this is the Ohio native L.J. Scott with a first down to the 49. Had a huge game against the Buckeyes last year, running for 160.
This is exactly the start that Michigan State wanted to get off with. As much as they've thrown the football the past 2 weeks, that is not what Mark D'Antonio wants to be the identity of this Michigan State team. He was actually surprised when we told him that they've thrown the football the past 2 weeks more than anyone in college football.
Whatever works, though, right? It has these Spartans as one of the nation's biggest surprises right now. It's 7-2 after the 3-9 season last year. Scott goes out. Holmes comes in, and on 1st and 10, he's got his first touch of the day. Or a short gain. It'll be 2nd and 8 as Draymond Jones makes the tackle in the middle of this very good Ohio State defensive front. This is what you know Michigan State has. The first 7 games of the season, ground and pound, tough football. Totally different personality the last 2.
Yeah, completely different. Something was out of necessity. I mean, they had a triple overtime game where they had to come back at the end versus Northwestern. Really last week, Penn State dictated that Michigan State had to throw the football more, but they've executed well, and then they've been kind of able to get hot in the passing game.
Pressure coming. Lewerke sat back at the 40, and it was Malik Harrison in for the injured Booker with the sack.
It's going to be Harrison. It's going to be Bosa as well. Watch the pressure that they're able to get off the edge, and this is what really plays to the strengths of this Ohio State football team is how good they are at bringing pressure at the snap of the football combined with their talent and speed up front.
Although lately teams have done a good job of limiting that pass rush. Only 3 sacks over the last 3 games for the Buckeyes.
Matchup to keep your eye on. Number 18, Felton Davis. He's been big for the Spartans.
On 3rd down and 18, they rush 5 and move Lewerke off his spot. Able to keep it alive and take off. Brian Lewerke stumbles close to the 1st down. Needed 18 and got 16, so it'll be 4th and 2.
He just shows so much poise in the pocket. And all of a sudden the rush starts to get to him after a while. He doesn't panic. He allows himself to try to find an opportunity to find running lanes to pick up additional yards, and they're going to be going for it on 4th down.
What do you think?
You got to love it. I mean, this is exactly the type of play calling you want to see from Mark D'Antonio, being on the road, being aggressive.
Holmes in the game at running back for 4th and 2. It's Lewerke straight ahead for a Michigan State 1st down. And they wind up moving the chains after facing 3rd down and 18.
This is the element that's so tough to stop if you're Ohio State. It's the quarterback running game, because as effective as Michigan State's been the past couple weeks throwing the football, you also have to account for that additional player in the backfield running. That's also pretty effective in Brian Lewerke.
So 2nd leading rusher on the season, close to 400 yards. 1st down from the 39, and against pressure, Lewerke on the roll, turns his shoulders and throws incomplete. That was Denzel Ward breaking up a pass intended for Matt Sokol. 2nd and 10.
He's one of the best cornerbacks in the Big Ten. That's number 12, Denzel Ward. Watch him track Sokol all the way across the field. Just makes a perfect play on the football. Looks like undercuts at the very end. It's textbook coverage.
One of the top NFL prospects at corner in the country. In his first year as a full-time starter, they had to replace a ton in the back end from last year. 3 departures to the NFL, 3 first-round picks. L.J. Scott back in there. On 2nd and 10, Lewerke scans and throws underneath. It's Ward again, quickly dropping Tristan Jackson, and it's 3rd down.
You Notice once again, Ohio State elects to bring some edge pressure. They bring the linebacker off the slot at the snap of the football. They're doing a good job of disguising it, not really giving any tells or any shows before the snap, and forcing Brian Lewerke to have to deal with it. We'll see if Greg Schiano dials up another pressure here.
Scott motions out on 3rd and 7. Buckeyes bring 4. Lewerke's in trouble and sacked by Bosa. Second time he's gotten involved in the backfield on this first drive, and it's 4th and long.
And it was a combination of the coverage downfield, nowhere to go with the football. Talked about it a moment ago. Look at Denzel Ward locked up, not allowing Felton Davis to get anywhere downfield, and eventually the pass rush will get there when you're as talented and as big and strong as Ohio State is up front on the D-line.
KJ Hill goes back to return this punt from Jake Hartbarger. And with a fair catch at the 13. JT Barrett and this Ohio State offense trying to make last week a distant memory. They take the field when you come back. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, and Bruce Feldman back in Columbus, where the Buckeyes are ready to take the ball for the first time. JT Barrett, the 5th-year senior from Wichita Falls, Texas, works out of the pistol to begin. J.K. Dobbins, a running back. And it's Barrett pulling it on the first down play, close to a first down. Yeah, the full body of work for J.T. Barrett still pretty good. 28 touchdowns, the most through 9 games in Big Ten history, but of course 4 of the 5 interceptions coming last week. And that was something he did a lot of last week, carrying the football. Gave him enough for a first down, and his first throw goes to Dobbins, who they have lined up in the slot, and a solid gain across the 30.
Only 11 touches last week, 6 rushes, 5 catches. Talking to the staff here at Ohio State, they want to get him more involved, and in particular the ball to the outside where he's most explosive.
True freshman out of LaGrange, Texas. He's got it again here. Big hole off the left side, and J.K. Dobbins a first down to the 45. Number 1 in the Big Ten, averaging better than 7 yards per carry. He's got 15 on this line.
That was the biggest criticism of the play calling last week, is not just continuing to give him touches, continuing to kind of play to the strengths of this offense, and that's giving J.K. Dobbins the football.
Straight ahead on first down into Michigan State territory against what is one of the best run defenses in the country.
Back to the conversation in regards to Dobbins. I mean, some of it's dictated by the defense. A lot of teams right now in the zone read schemes are forcing JT Barrett to keep the football.
Off play action. Nobody near Dobbins, but it sails in as Kenny Willekes might have saved the day by crunching Barrett as he let it go.
Kenny Willekes has really stepped up for Michigan State. Leads the team in sacks. He's got a nice little counter move. See how he slaps by the hands of Isaiah Prince to come to the inside? He's got a couple different moves that he utilizes to get to the quarterback.
First 3rd down for the Buckeyes. They bring Mike Weber in at running back. And hand it to him with a seam. There goes Mike Weber. He will take it. Touchdown Buckeyes from 47.
Two-thirds of Mike Weber's carries have come in between the tackles for good reason. That's where he is best. He's a one cut and get north and south up the field. Right there you see him take it to the house for the big play.
It's been a really frustrating season for him. 1 year after he was the Big Ten Freshman of the Year. Hamstring issues from the start. You see J.K. Dobbins take more of a prominent role. But it's Weber to start the scoring on this Saturday afternoon. In a top 15 matchup, Ohio State strikes first.
Well,
Helps pave the way there, Brady, for the longest run against Michigan State's defense this season. 47 yards. Here's Connor Hayward pinned in the corner by that kick and cut down shy of the 20. Off and rolling here in Columbus. L.J. Scott couldn't get going. He'll lose 2. We're talking near the end of that last drive why Tyson Smith is wearing 19, and for more on it, down to Bruce.
Joe, Michigan State's without one of its better DBs today. Josh Butler is back home for his dad Steven's funeral. He had passed away just hours before the Penn State game last week. The 20-year-old actually created a GoFundMe page which raised over $8,000 in just 18 hours to help deal with funeral costs. And today, one of his best friends, Tyson Smith, who normally wears 15, is wearing number 19, Butler's jersey, to honor his friend.
And all the Spartans thinking about the Butler family today. Pressure coming on second down. Lewerke for Cody White, and incomplete with a coverage from Denzel Ward.
Yeah, they keep targeting Denzel Ward. I have no idea why. You might want to work somewhere else on the field. Ward is so good in coverage. Look how patient he is. He stays step for step with the wide receiver, and then once the wide receiver goes to put his hands up, he matches them and put his hand up. He didn't hit the football, but obviously enough in the way of Cody White. The ball a little bit high, but again, not many other places you can throw the football when you've got such tight coverage.
You mentioned might want to throw it somewhere else. Ward is by far their best cover corner. On the other side, Arnett and Sheffield rotate, but neither one of those guys close to what Ward is. Lewerke throwing in that direction this time, but pretty good coverage from Arnett. Intended receiver was Darrell Stewart.
There you go. He tries working the other side, but nothing going there either. And this is what the Michigan State wide receivers are going to have to deal with all game long. And really, it was a concern of offensive coordinator Dave Warner. He said, our wide receivers are going to have to deal with in-your-face press man-to-man coverage. And they're going to have to make plays. And Brian Lewerke is going to have to throw up footballs that are going to be in tight windows. They're going to be tough to complete. But we've got to make those plays and come down for it.
3 drives, 3 punts for the Spartans. High punt this time that forces a fair catch from K.J. Hill. Dobbins trying to get outside. And J.K. Dobbins with a healthy first down gain. You're going to go back to 2013 to find the last time Urban Meyer lost back-to-back games. One of those games was against Michigan State at the end of the season before a loss to Clemson in the bowl game that year. Dobbins again, and a first down for Ohio State.
Talk about the expectations for Ohio State. Bottom line is, I know people want to write off their opportunity to go to the college football playoff. There's a lot of football left to be played. And if Ohio State can win today, and they win the Big Ten East and go and win the Big Ten Championship, you might have a hard time keeping even a 2-loss team like Ohio State out of the college football playoff, depending on what happens the rest of the season.
I said first down, they spotted him just short, so 3rd and a foot. They give it to Paris Campbell, who slips a tackle. And Paris Campbell down the sideline for a 30-yard gain. Missed last week with a concussion. He's back, and on his first touch takes it into Spartan territory.
And this is some of the big playability that Ohio State missed. An easy completion for J.T. Barrett, and Paris Campbell can do the rest. The other thing Paris Campbell does really well that gets overlooked, his blocking. He's very good at blocking in the run game.
Behind Dobbins, had he caught it, was about to get drilled by Justin Lane or Kari Willis. 2nd and 10.
We talked with Harlan Barnett, defensive coordinator for Michigan State. He said, look, when J.K. Dobbins is in the game, we know exactly what they're trying to do. They're going to try to get him to on the outside in the passing game and try to run off tackle where he's most effective.
Off play action. Strong arm throw to the outside for their leading receiver, K.J. Hill, who's got a first down before his body slammed down. Now K.J. Hill with a gain of 12.
This is part of that run-pass option Ohio State likes to run. Got a little short, quick out route to Hill, who does the rest. That looks like a horse collar.
Yeah.
And that would fit because clearly he's got his hand up around the collar of Hill.
Here's Barrett. Good in the field. JT Barrett, who perhaps vaulted himself to the very top of the Heisman discussion with that 33 of 39 game against Penn State. 33-6 as a starter. Twice he's been the Big Ten quarterback of the year. In the worst game of his career last week. Hands it to Dobbins, who pinballs his way for close to a first down. And it looks like they spot him with it on.
Just an angry football team right now after their performance last week versus Iowa, clearly imposing their will on Michigan State.
Back to Dobbins on first down, and of course that was a question coming in. What were you going to have? Were you going to have an angry Ohio State team, or were you going to have a team that at this point said, well, we're not playing in the playoff most likely, what do we have left? And they've not taken that route.
No, not at all. I mean, I think you create those goals for yourself at the beginning of every season, and the Big Ten is right up there at the top, and we'll see what the College Football Playoff Committee decides at the end of the season. But this is a team that's playing with good tempo right now, much faster than what we saw last week versus Iowa, but much more physical up front on their offensive line.
Ninth play of this drive is another J.K. Dobbins run, and he's inside the 10. That will be 3rd and short.
It's that area of the field where J.T. Barrett gets involved in the running game.
Here he is with Dobbins leading the way. He's got a first down. Bocci with a tackle, but it's 1st and goal, Ohio State.
It's so tough to defend when you've got a quarterback that can run like J.T. Barrett, because it makes you have to account for an additional gap, meaning you've got to devote another defensive player just to account for the quarterback. And it's tough to do because then you're in man-to-man coverage with no help. I mean, right now, when you look at the top of the field, you're going to see 3 wide receivers by themselves in man-to-man coverage with no safety help.
First and goal. Barrett keeps for an Ohio State touchdown. And the Buckeyes off to a good start in this one.
That zone read scheme. Watch as Barrett finds the seam on the right side of the Michigan State defense. It's Marcus Ball setting the block on Khari Willis to help seal it. But unfortunately, the only unblocked defender on that last play was number 5, Andre Dowell, all the way on the backside. He can't make it there in time.
Extra point is good. An 11-play drive for the Buckeyes culminates in a J.T. Barrett touchdown run back in 30 seconds. Already 148 yards of offense for Ohio State, 7.5 yards per play, and a 14-0 lead after J.T. Barrett's touchdown run.
J.K. Dobbins with 51 yards today so far. Levante Bellamy from Western Michigan, he's had the best performance versus Michigan State all year. He had 67 yards. That's it. Dobbins off to a great start.
Ohio State already over 100 yards on the ground as a team. Spartans average allowing 87 for an entire game. Hayward watches it drop, and then it deadens right at the goal line, and he's in trouble. Tackled inside the 5-yard line.
This is a huge drive for Michigan State. They've got to find some sort of way of getting back some of the momentum, especially after that last poor kickoff return.
Last 7 plays for this Michigan State offense, negative 10 yards. Lewerke rolls from his own end zone, incomplete.
And there was just nowhere to go with the football. Utilizing a very similar formation to what Iowa did last week, that defensive coordinator Greg Schiano said was something they hadn't done all year. They were really effective with it, and they kept running it. We had a hard time adjusting to it during the game. Michigan State is basically overloading one side. They're rolling out Lewerke to that side, trying to find throwing lanes for him because they can't protect him in the pocket versus Ohio State's defensive front.
2 for 8 so far. He's been sacked twice. Fakes to Scott. Sets his feet to the sideline for White. Out of his reach, third down.
It's the third overthrow by Lewerke so far today, and it's always tough when you're throwing out of the back of your own end zone, especially when you've been pressured as much as he has early on in this game. But he's got to find a way to calm down and make a play, but someone's got to step up because it's third down and long. You know it's going to be tight coverage against this Ohio State defensive secondary.
Michigan State has gone as Brian Lewerke has gone. As he's emerged, they've emerged in the Big Ten race. In the first quarter, owned by Ohio State, Lewerke throws behind Stewart and finishes his first quarter with 7 consecutive incompletions. Spartans in some trouble early. Ohio State bouncing back quickly from the embarrassing loss last week. It's 14-0 after a quarter in Columbus. Well, a special teams tackle from Zach Turnier put Michigan State at its own 5 to open this drive, and a 3-and-out has Jake Hartbarger punting out of his own end zone to open the second quarter. Already his 4th of the game. This one the most uncomfortable of the bunch, and it's almost blocked by Denzel Ward. Instead, a booming punt sends K.J. Hill back to the 40. Makes 2 men miss and then goes down at the 32-yard line. Mike Weber in the game at running back to open this drive. Went 47 yards for a touchdown the first time that he touched it. Here, it's J.T. Barrett for a gain of 9. David Dow with the tackle.
Did you see what happened, though? You see how the defensive end went immediately for the running back instead of taking the quarterback. You know, this has been by design. Teams are trying to force J.T. Barrett to keep the football. You go back and look at the 5 losses they've had under Urban Meyer. J.T. Barrett's led the team in attempts in all those matchups.
He'll throw on 2nd and short. Instead, take off with a first down, leaning near midfield. And like you said, that's kind of become the blueprint, right? In that run-pass option in the read game to make him hand it or make him keep it.
Yeah, look, J.T. Barrett is an effective runner, but he doesn't have the type of speed that we've seen from Weber today with this big touchdown runner. J.K. Dobbins in the past as well. You have to go back to 2014, the last time J.T. Barrett had an 80-yard-plus run. Teams have been forcing him to keep it.
Hands it off here, and Weber explodes through the hole for a first down.
For that exact reason. I mean, you put the football in Mike Weber's hands, J.K. Dobbins' hands enough, these guys are going to break tackles. They're going to make plays for you. That's not saying J.T. Barrett isn't going to be effective off of it. It just doesn't have the same type of speed that those guys have.
Barrett ran it 14 times last week, but only 4 were designed quarterback runs. Short first down gain for Mike Weber. And it'll be 2nd and 6. Weber again, a hole off the left side. Close to a first down with a stop from Joe Bocci.
One of the biggest differences you're seeing right now is this Ohio State offense is just having, these are run plays. There's not a pass option. You know, maybe they sprinkle in a zone read where Barrett's got the opportunity to keep it, but they're just trying to run the football and build up the effectiveness there.
3rd and short. And another straight ahead run. First down and goal for Ohio State as Weber takes it to the 6. And Ohio State against a Michigan State defense that gives up less than 100 per game on the ground already has 149. They look to add to that here. Weber inside the 5.
Look at the tempo, though. I mean, the ball's down. They're getting back up, getting lined up. And J.T. Barrett's already got him in the next play. It's incredibly tough to keep pace if you're Michigan State when Ohio State plays this fast.
Here it is Weber. Pulled down by Kenny Willekes, 3rd and goal. 14 of the last 15 plays have been runs for Ohio State.
3rd down, though. Look at a guy like Benjamin Victor. I mean, he's the size matchup that you'd like, standing at 6'4", 195 pounds.
JT Barrett is in. Touchdown, Ohio State. Throwback Buckeye football, pounding away on Michigan State.
He stresses the defense. They want to get everyone moving that way, and it creates a seam then for Barrett at the snap of the football. You can see Demetrius Knox coming across to help create the hole, but good play design by the offensive staff at Ohio State.
Yeah, Michigan State very clearly has run into an angry Ohio State team. Fresh off of the 55-24 defeat, a 21-0 lead early in the second quarter. Blake Haubill to kick it. Connor Hayward from the 9. Kick coverage has been splendid for Ohio State today. Third down 10. Lewerke again scrambling. Chase from behind. There's a flag down, and he's down with the ball out. Picked up by Damon Arnett.
And it looked like it was going to be a holding penalty on Michigan State. So you'd think that Ohio State would take the football, clearly.
Holding. Offense, number 61. Penalties decline. Result of the play is a fumble recovered by the defense. Ohio State first down.
This is something that the Buckeyes did well last year. Take the ball away. It's been an issue this year. This is only their second takeaway in the last 4 games.
And Lewis is able to get the football out. Talked about Lewerke's speed, his elusiveness. Not fast enough to get away from this defensive front. And there lies Damon Arnett, able to get the fumble recovery and set up the Buckeyes once again in scoring position. And the way they pounced so far in Michigan State, it just goes to show you really the statement that I think they wanted to try to make to everyone out there, that last week we had a bad week. That wasn't who we are as a football team. Look at our body of work.
It also probably makes last week a little bit more frustrating at this point when you see what this team's capable of. Although folks have seen that for much of the year. JT Barrett pulls it, and then run pass option. It's his tight end Marcus Ball. Climbs the ladder for a gain of 14.
He just goes aerial, but I mean, look how they ended up dropping him in coverage. That's what happens when you run the football so effectively. Everyone's got to account for the quarterback and running back in the run game, and it allows your tight end to leak out.
Here's Dobbins inside the 10. Stays on his feet and finally driven back. The whistle blows as Dobbins gets to the 8-yard line.
It just becomes incredibly difficult to defend all the different options that the offense has when you have to worry about a running back who can hurt you, a quarterback who can run the football effectively, but also a quarterback who can throw it to the outside. It just really stresses your defense. You combine that with the tempo that Ohio State's playing with, just hard just to get lined up.
Swing Dobbins out, get it in his hands, blocks in front. J.K. Dobbins for the touchdown. Ohio State routing Michigan State.
Look at the blocking downfield. We talked about Paris Campbell being out a week ago, something that's underrated and missed. His ability to block downfield. Him, Benjamin Victor, both of them are able to help seal and create a lane. It's that unselfish play you love to see from your wide receivers. Those guys typically want the football in this part of the field. They're selling out for their teammate, helping J.K. Dobbins get in the end zone.
226 total yards for the Buckeyes already. Not even halfway through the second quarter. And here they need just 3 plays to take advantage of the takeaway. Lewerke fumbles. Damon Arnett picks it up. And J.K. Dobbins pays it off. everything going right for Ohio State in this game. Already more points than they had last week in Iowa City. 28-0 over the Spartans.
Well, it starts right here. Michigan State's been awful so far today in their kickoff return unit. They've got to get better starting field position because Ohio State's done a good job covering down. It started with bad field position, and it's been inefficiency on offense from that point moving forward.
Connor Hayward back to return this kick. Credit to Blake Hawbill for pinning him down in the corner each time. Here comes Hayward from the 5, and a little more room this time as he hurdles across the 25-yard line, and we again check in with Bruce.
Joe, senior center Brian Allen from Michigan State just lit into his teammates. There's a whole lot of adjectives, none I can say. He just said, you guys, nobody's doing their jobs. You better do your jobs. You better get your heads out of, well, you know the rest. And we'll see how these guys respond. He's the most animated guy on the sideline right now.
Bruce is that guy for our crew when he feels like we're slacking.
He's got a little bit of a potty mouth, too, when we're talking about Bruce Feldman. Surprising he didn't use that language on TV.
They run the sweep on first down. Reese Nelson, Tracy Sprinkle, and Nick Bosa combined to tackle him. Lewerke, the first quarterback in Michigan State history, back-to-back 400-yard games. Nothing like that today. 7 consecutive incompletions.
I think about who that encompasses. I mean, Kirk Cousins right now, starter in the NFL. Drew Stanton starting right now for Carson Palmer. We've seen Brian Hoyer start games. Connor Cook was a high-round draft pick. I mean, and these are all guys who are moving on to play at the next level. It's saying a lot as far as his production. 9
men at the line of scrimmage for Ohio State. And they bring a bunch of them. It's picked up this time, and Lewerke throws off target to the sideline for Rison. Coverage from Damon Arnett. And not just Michigan State history, but in the last 20 years in the Big Ten, he's one of 3 guys to have back-to-back 400-yard passing games. C.J. Bechet at Northwestern and Drew Brees.
But once again, he finds himself in 3rd and longs. It's 3rd and 10. Now, Michigan State has been the best in the Big Ten at converting 3rd and 8+ scenarios. It's been in large part because of Lewerke running at times. We saw that earlier in this drive.
Ohio State bringing it, and incomplete. No chance for Brian Lewerke trying to hit a crosser. Finally able to pick up a first down on this drive, but not a whole lot more.
I'll tell you what, the Ohio State defensive front and Brian Lewerke are getting very close there in the backfield. Those guys are meeting often, and there's a lot of talking going back and forth. Just nothing going. I mean, again, credit the Ohio State defense. It's been tight coverage and it's been pressure all game long.
Harburger's been very busy. Ward again nearly blocks it. And it bounces its way for another good one for Hartbarger. 44-yarder. Buckeyes back on offense, trying to pad this 28-0 lead in Columbus. Mike Weber already has the single best rushing performance against Michigan State all year, and J.K. Dobbins, J.T. Barrett not far off.
And take into account who they've gone up against. I mean, Josh Adams for Notre Dame. He's a Heisman candidate. Look at Akram Wadley at Iowa. Saquon Barkley for Penn State, another Heisman candidate. They've taken on some good running backs and shut them down. Been none of that so far today versus Ohio State.
Mike Weber's the man in there on first down, and he's got it with a gaping hole. And Mike Weber turns on the afterburners. He's going to take this one. Touchdown, Ohio State. What a performance. Domination on the ground for the Buckeyes.
It's a numbers game. And clearly you can see there's only really one linebacker in the box and all this room in the middle of the field. Once Mike Weber gets it, Michael Jordan seals on Joe Bocci, and that's it.
Mike Weber now 161 yards, which is 100 more than anybody else has run for against Michigan State this year. Escalating quickly. 35-0 Ohio State. Mike Weber goes 82 yards. His 2 touchdowns today from 82 and from 47, and his 161 total is a career high.
Yeah, that's going to keep going up because I don't think they're going to shut him down this early. Still a lot of football left to be played, but what a performance by Mike Weber. But really, it's also the Ohio State offensive line. Those guys are opening up holes. They're extremely physical at the point of attack, something that you didn't see as much last week versus Iowa. Credit the big boys up front for paving the way for the running backs and really the running game for Ohio State so far. Again,
against one of the best run defenses in the country, not just this year, but that is the identity of this Michigan State program under Mark D'Antonio, stopping the run. The Buckeyes absolutely demolishing that run defense in this first half. Hayward to the 22. Got a complete performance for Ohio State. They've held Michigan State's offense to just 49 yards total. And L.J. Scott has a big chunk of that with a run that he had on their opening drive when it looked like Michigan State was going to keep doing what they've been doing the last couple of weeks. Drove it down into Ohio State territory, stalled out, and have done nothing since.
Yeah, since that 20-yard run by L.J. Scott, he was hampered. He got his ankle spatted up. Looks like he got a little bit banged up, and he hasn't been as effective since he's come back.
On second down, Lewerke comes back to his second read, and it hovers out there dangerously into the arms of Cody White. A rare completion in this first half for Brian Lewerke, who's now 4 of 14, and it's 3rd and short.
And that was a risky throw. He worked to the left side of the field, didn't like what he saw, came all the way back to his right. You mentioned the ball kind of floated on him and gave Denzel Ward an opportunity to almost break up that pass.
On 3rd and 2, they fake to Stewart. Lewerke runs it, won't get it. Shut down by Chris Worley, and it's 4th down.
How impressive has Chris Worley been so far? Just this front 7 for Ohio State. And he's got a beat on this play from the get-go. Ends up being untouched. That's why he's the free runner to the quarterback. And that's really been the difference, too, when you look at Michigan State not being able to really get much going on the ground. It's because the defensive line for Ohio State has penetrated so much or eaten up the offensive linemen, they haven't been able to get downfield to cover up the linebackers for Ohio State.
So 4th down and 1. Michigan State has converted its lone 4th down try today. Lewerke going with a hard count. Nobody budging. Now they'll sneak it. And get it. So Mark D'Antonio has a change of heart. He sent the punt team out there initially, then called timeout. The offense goes out, keeps the drive alive.
Keep in mind this too, Ohio State gets the ball coming out of halftime.
Yeah.
I don't know that Mark D'Antonio wants to give the Buckeyes back the football based on how well their offense is executed or how poorly their defense has played.
L.J. Scott gets a gain of 3, 2nd and 7. Here's off-play action. Lewerke zipping one to the sideline, and it's picked off by Damon Arnett. He's got a fumble recovery and now an interception. There is a flag down in the backfield, though, where that throw is delivered by Lewerke.
The question is going to be, because I think this is going to be a late hit, was it after the interception?
Personal foul, roughing the passer with targeting. Defense, number 86.
So Michigan State looking for something to feel good about going into the break. 2 timeouts, 59 seconds. That's White that comes into the backfield. This is a trick play. White looking to throw it, and he juggles it, slips out of a tackle, and runs his way with a crunching block inside the 40.
I mean, that play went from being almost a disaster to then all of a sudden being a positive gain. And David Beadle absolutely lit up Sam Hubbard.
Timeout for injured player.
Watch right there. As this play ensues, you see Cody White not finding anything downfield. Ohio State did a good job of adjusting to it. Watch right there. Right there. This is just a devastating blow. And
37 seconds, 2nd and 5. Lewerke steps into a throw for Stewart, who is quickly planted by Eric Smith. That's it off for a first down, but inside 30 seconds. It's been a long time since the Spartans have seen this kind of halftime hole. 2002. At that point, Brian Lewerke was 4 years old.
At some point, you got to get Felton Davis involved. He had 12 reception for over 180 yards and a touchdown last week. Shut out so far today.
Ohio State bringing pressure, picked up this time. That is Felton Davis, the intended receiver, but Kendall Sheffield step for step. And really across the board, these Ohio State DBs have played well today.
Well, it's that. It's the fact that Lewerke's got to get the football out of his hand quicker because of the Ohio State pass rush. That means Davis has to get open sooner, and it's just not happening. Sheffield last time, as far as the press coverage, doing a good job. Denzel Ward we've seen throughout the course of the game. So again, that's why last week's loss to Iowa was just so shocking. And it wasn't the cornerbacks or secondaries. It was really those matchups on the linebackers and safeties.
And it's almost more shocking once you watch this and see what they're doing to the 12th ranked Spartans. Darrell Stewart needs to get out of bounds. Stayed in bounds intentionally. Eric Smith made the tackle. Michigan State has to use its final timeout. Lewerke, who threw for 845 yards over the last 2 weeks, has been held to 45 today. On 3rd and short, he's got a first down. L.J. Scott does get out of bounds inside the 20. 10 seconds remaining.
So probably a quick shot to the end zone with no timeouts, no chance you're going to be able to rush your field goal team on the field to be able to kick a field goal.
It doesn't do you a whole lot of good anyway.
No, so you got to take a shot at the end zone. And if that doesn't work out, you can come back and kick the field goal considering how much time you have left, or take another shot if you want.
On the 19-yard line on 1st and 10. Lewerke steps out of Hubbard's sack attempt. A heave to the end zone. Broke it up and incomplete. Cody White had come open momentarily. There is a flag that flies very late here after Webb was drilled.
There is no foul on the play. 2nd down.
Mike Cannon will pick up the flag. Let's take a look at it.
See as Cody White adjusts. I mean, clearly that's not even to the neck or head area.
No,
the wide receiver is considered defenseless. But there's nothing wrong with that. That's just a good play by Sheffield.
They decide to send Matt Coughlin out there for a 37-yarder. Freshman out of Cincinnati, last week's hero for the Spartans. He knocks it through, and Michigan State closes the half by getting a few. 35-3, all Buckeyes in this first half. Now to Rob Stone in Los Angeles for the State Farm halftime show. Back back in Columbus and ready for the second half. Complete dominance by Ohio State in that first half against the #1 run defense in the Big Ten, one of the top run defenses in the country. They hold them to they run for 253 and have a 35-3 lead as we get you ready for the second half, Joe and Brady. And wow, I'm not sure I saw that coming.
No, I don't think anyone saw this coming. I mean, just physical domination is what it's been. It's been defensively and offensively. Their defense up front, their defensive line has just gotten after Brian Lewerke all game long thus far, and their coverage unit has done a tremendous job covering down. On the flip side, offensively, they've run the football effectively after a week ago struggling versus Iowa. They got back on track.
And they'll get the ball to begin this second half. Weber back to return it. There's a wobbling line drive of a kick. The Weber takes off a bounce at the 15. And Ohio State begin to the 27-yard line. How about 20 yards per carry for Mike Weber in that first half, and out to his career high 161 already. Second half begins with an outside run for J.K. Dobbins. Hits the R1 button and dances his way for 9 as we check in with Bruce.
Joe, I asked Urban Meyer, why were you guys able to run the football so well when nobody else has been able to do that against these guys? He said, we did some stuff that's really good formationally. We spread them out. We've gone a lot of unbalance, and we think that's working. As far as Mark D'Antonio, just very frustrated. He goes, nothing's gone right. We're not coaching well. We're not tackling well. We're not playing well.
And he's not going to like this. That's a horse collar on Andrew Dowell as he tried to bring Marcus Baugh down.
And he was doing everything he could to bring down Baugh. That's what happens when you're all alone in the middle of the field. Sometimes you do everything you can to bring a guy down and not allow him to get upfield.
Face mask. Defense, number 5.
It's a face
15-yard
mask.
penalty.
Same result, though.
First out.
Michigan State's been one of the more penalized teams this year, in particular on defense. But talked about the unbalanced formations. You know, traditionally in unbalanced formations, when you put your tight end at a tackle spot and your tackle goes over and plays the tight end position, they've been using more overload formations, in my opinion.
Fake to Dobbins. Barrett steps into a throw down the sideline. It is caught by Ben Victor for the Ohio State touchdown. 48 yards, getting it done through the air to open the second half.
One-on-one on the outside, and Victor was able to just get a step on Justin Lane, who we saw earlier on a pass interference. The Buckeyes got everything working right now, up 41-3.
Victor hadn't had a catch over the last 2 games. Freak of an athlete who they think has a huge future. Extra point there from Nurnberger. 42-3 Ohio State before Michigan State touches it in the second half. Ohio State 42. Michigan State 3. Ben Victor in the end zone for the 5th time this season on a 48-yard strike from J.T. Barrett.
That's what happens when you run the football as successfully as Ohio State has. It forces one-on-one coverage on the outside. And the Buckeyes wide receivers have stepped up and made those plays.
So the offense has had its way. Special teams has been very good. Defense has been dominant as well. All 3 phases clicking for the Buckeyes, and now we get to see the defensive side of that equation for the first time in the second half. L.J. Scott, a 20-yard run on one of his first carries of the day, but has only 30 total, as Ohio State has bottled up a guy who chose the Spartans over the Buckeyes. Native of Hubbard, Ohio. He's a highly touted recruit who got off to a great start in his career at Michigan State. Game-winning touchdown in the Big Ten championship game as a freshman. Honorable mention all-conference last year. But fumbling issues this year combined with a young offensive line, and he's been slow to get it going. On second down, Lewerke sees a free run pressure bursting through. It's Chris Worley for another Ohio State sack.
You see Worley right here. And here's the thing. He's going to be a free rusher because all the guys up front on the offensive line are covered up. So no one can step down to be able to protect against Worley blitzing through the A-gap. You can see Mark D'Antonio just disgusted right now with the performance. But, you know, it's partially the scheme, too. Right now, the Ohio State staff has done a better job preparing for Michigan State, and their players are out there executing at a higher level.
You know, last week, part of the criticism in the loss against Iowa was that they were out-prepared. That Iowa was more ready to play that game than Ohio State was. And they flipped the script on that narrative this week. L.J. Scott on the shovel pass. Back to the original line of scrimmage, but it's 4th down, and the punt team will come out.
Just a creative way to add yards onto this punt. I think that's the frustrating thing if you're an Ohio State fan, because you see the way your team is capable of playing versus a very good opponent in Michigan State.
We saw the Buckeyes a few years ago, and not many people thought that they were going to be in the playoff. Have the perfect game in the Big Ten championship against Wisconsin to force their way into it. Is there a scenario where they could force their way into the discussion again this year? Obviously, in this case, 2 losses. We'll talk about the college football playoff rankings about a month away from finding out who the 4 will be. Back to Columbus in a moment. The latest playoff picture. 8 of the top 13 teams in the country this week facing off head-to-head this weekend. Of course, on Fox later tonight, number 5 Oklahoma, number 6 TCU. Still a lot of football to be played for this whole thing to shake out. Bruce, what do you think?
Joe, my top 4 is actually the same as Brady's, but I'll tell you what. Ohio State needs some help, but they got help last night with Stanford beating Washington. I think the Pac-12 is going to be out. I don't think they're going to be in it. If the Buckeyes can get some help from Miami tonight.
Here goes J.K. Dobbins again, Bruce. Weaving his way inside the 25 on a gain of 35. Go ahead, Bruce.
So fittingly on another blowout play here from the Buckeyes. If they keep looking really impressive down the stretch, and if they can hammer an undefeated Wisconsin in the Big Ten title game, that's going to carry a lot of weight. And I think people know this is a dangerous team, and they may be the top 2-loss team in the mix, and we could get a 2-loss team in the playoff this year.
Harris Campbell fights his way down to the 6, and we've seen that before. Them make that statement on the final day in Indy against Wisconsin, who would likely be against here. Now what they need is Wisconsin to run the table to that point.
Yeah, they're going to need a little bit of help, and they need some other teams to drop some games in some of the other Power 5 conferences. It'd be nice if you end up having a 2-loss ACC champion as well, because Clemson right now sits with 1 loss. You look at Miami, they're undefeated. Who knows what happens tonight in South Florida versus Notre Dame. But I'm with Bruce. I don't think the Pac-12 gets a team in this season. You look at the Big 12. I don't know if they can afford to have a 2-loss Big 12 champion. In the SEC, there's a lot of debate. They think they can get 2 teams in. We'll wait and see. And Auburn might be that team if they could do what seems improbable, and that's beat Georgia twice and Alabama.
Yeah, that'd be quite a final month if they could pull that off. 2nd and goal. Dobbins cracked in the backfield. That play blown up by Mike Horseshoe. I think the SEC overall right now is pretty fascinating with how that's all going to shake out.
The problem is you've got 2 teams essentially at the top in Alabama and Georgia who are so much better than everyone else. I mean, Georgia's already punched their ticket to the SEC championship game. Right. It just comes down to the West, and if Alabama can run the table, if Auburn could potentially win the West since they control their own destiny at this point.
Victor can't haul this one in. Coverage from Justin Lane. 4th down. You think they could get 2 in?
I think it depends upon what happens everywhere else and how the committee views potentially a Big Ten champ. If it was Ohio State, if they had 2 losses, and how they perform along the way. We've seen the kind of style points, if you will, matter towards the end of the season. Again, then there's Notre Dame. You know, how do you view them if they went out, even though they're not a conference champion, their only loss being versus Georgia? Could you put in Georgia over Notre Dame? Probably not, since head-to-head is part of the criteria for the college football playoff.
45-3 Buckeyes. I think we're going to have some more time to talk about this stuff and whatever else comes up. Not every kickoff has gone to this spot. Gunnar Hayward across the 25-yard line. He tosses it for Gerald Holmes, who's stopped by Borland. Second down.
Talked about some of the decisions as to why Brian Lewerke went to Michigan State. I had the opportunity to talk with him earlier this season. He said, look, they've had a number of quarterbacks go on to the next level. That was something that appealed to me. I wanted to go to a program where I felt like would help prepare me for the next level. That's my ultimate dream of playing football in the NFL. He felt like with the recent run of quarterbacks at Michigan State who've gone on to play at that level, it was a good fit.
On second down, underneath Rison. Hunter Rison for a gain of 5 with a stop from Damon Webb.
Even though this Michigan State offense the past couple games have passed for a lot of yards, they've really come via yards after the catch. They've been the best in the past 2 weeks in the Big Ten as far as their wide receivers. Brian Lewerke hasn't completed a ton of footballs over 20 yards downfield. It's been a lot of catch and run throws underneath where they've gotten a lot of production.
Ohio State's done a nice job of tackling today. That was part of the issue at Iowa last week. One of many. They're down 4. Buckeyes bring 5. They protect Lewerke, but it's knocked down at the line of scrimmage, and it's 4th down. Nick Bosa got his hand on it.
There wasn't much there anyway. They were trying to set up this little rub route for Darrell Stewart. And once again, the Buckeye coverage matched with its pass rush, was able to get the stop. Michigan State is 3 of 13 on 3rd down today. Credit defensive coordinator Greg Schiano, Urban Meyer and their staff are coming up with the adjustments, and the players executed.
7th Hartbarger punt of the day. KJ Hill, fair catch. It has been all Buckeyes in this one, taking control in the Big Ten East and bringing Michigan State back to earth. Back to Columbus in a moment. By Discover with what Ohio State is doing today. You already have plenty of clarity in the West.
Yeah, as far as this game today, the winner kind of moves on and sits in the driver's seat in the Big Ten East, and still, in my opinion, has an opportunity to get into the college football playoff if they were to beat Michigan at the end of the year, then beat what is assumed to be Wisconsin if they went out in the Big Ten championship game.
Be sure to tune into that championship game presented by Discover. That's December 2nd on Fox from Indianapolis. Buckeyes from their own 10-yard line. J.K. Dobbins has it. His 16th carry of the day. Lowers the shoulder through Dowell, close to a 1st down. These 16 carries, the most that Dobbins has had since he carried it 29 times week 1.
Watch this stiff arm at the very end of this run to cap it off. Dobbins is 5'10", 210 pounds, but just giving it to the Michigan State secondary.
Dobbins 112 yards today. He's over 1,000 for the year. Adds to that total with a nifty run to the 29. This is one of the big stories coming in this week, was the lack of touches for Dobbins and Weber. Combined for 11 carries last week. They've combined for 26 this week.
And when you go back to last week, again, it wasn't like Iowa ran away with it. I mean, they were tied at 17 at one point, even after the tough start with the way the game started. J.T. Barrett throwing a pick 6. They weren't out of it. They just got away from the running game.
From the 41, they fake the toss and throw the wheel to Marcus Ball. If he had kept him on his feet, he'd still be running. As it stands, an 18-yard completion to the 42.
Well-designed play. You're going to see Ball kind of leak out into the flat and start to turn up the field on the wheel route. Typically, they forget about those big boys, the tight ends releasing out. Once they get in the flat, everyone kind of just push them aside. Good play design there by Kevin Wilson.
Ohio State staff really likes the way Marcus Ball's been practicing lately. He's had a good performance in this one. Here's Ben Victor. He's had a good day as well with a long touchdown. He's got another Ohio State first down.
I mean, the bottom line is this Ohio State team is as talented as it gets in the country. When you look at the recruiting rankings throughout the years, I mean, all these guys are 4-star, 5-star recruits. And when you have that, you have high expectations.
Weber spins off initial contact, lowers the shoulder, gets 2. Let's bring in Bruce. Bruce?
Joe,
Hi.
Ben Victor came in from Florida, huge recruit for them, but really skinny. In fact, Mickey Marotti, the longtime strength coach here, was like, he was like a pencil, 6'4", 160 pounds. But Urban Meyer says his ball skills on a 1 to 10 are a 10. He just has to get a lot stronger, and that's where Mickey comes in.
Mickey was my strength coach for 2 years. Believe me, if he wants to get stronger, you're going to get strong in that weight room with Mickey Marotti. He's the best in the business.
2nd and 9. What is it about it?
Well, I mean, look, he's going to keep you in there until you're able to put on the weight so you gain the strength that you need to.
Barrett has all day to scan the field. Now will take off and run out of bounds. So you're talking like long lifting sessions?
Long lifting sessions, intense lifting sessions. I mean, you know, to me, the strength coach is one of the most important positions on your staff because you know, you're limited in how much time you could spend with a student athlete in college football. But the strength coach, you're with them all year long. He sees these guys in the offseason when coaches typically are out recruiting and is working with them constantly.
Here's an end zone throw. Victor goes over the top and almost made a catch around Josiah Scott. Instead, it's incomplete. But a great effort from Victor with that length that Bruce was talking about.
You'd like to be able to start to kind of build that momentum again in the passing game, get some confidence back for JT Barrett in this offense. Nearly a ridiculous catch by Victor, but credit Scott being in position. Josiah Scott's had a heck of a year for Michigan State. An early enrollee, true freshman. Talked about him being the leader of that cornerback group. He's a true freshman. That's tough to do, to go to come in right away and get the respect of your teammates.
Call him the little pest. He's 5'10", 173. Still always around the ball and plays a whole lot bigger than he is. Dobbins carried it here, 3rd down. There's Scott, who's an Ohio guy. Hamilton, Ohio. Wasn't heavily recruited. Harlan Barnett, one of the defensive coordinators, told us yesterday, if you had a team full of guys like Josiah Scott, you would sleep really well every single night.
A lot of Ohio guys on this Michigan State defense, in particular in the secondary.
Yeah, across the back 7. 6 of the starters are Ohio natives. A shovel pass. Dobbins to the 11. Chris Fry, Ari Willis combined on the stop, 4th down.
Chris Fry, an Ohio guy. Right down the road up Arlington.
One of 10 Michigan State starters. Buckeye State. 26 players total. More players on the roster, at least scholarship players from Ohio than there are from Michigan on Michigan State.
I think it's one of the more surprising things to see too, as far as Michigan State, just the way they came out in this game. You know, with so many guys coming back to their roots, you would have figured they would have been up, awake for this game. Early start, sometimes tough for the road team, but just not the performance that you would have expected.
Sternberger's 2nd field goal to this 2nd half. Brings us 3rd quarter to a close. More of the same for the Buckeyes. A touchdown in the first drive and then 2 field goals. Rolling Michigan State in this top 15 matchup. On to the 4th in Columbus. All Buckeyes in this one. 48-3. Down to the 4th quarter in Columbus. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, and Bruce Feldman. Bounces out at the 1 for the first time today. That coffin corner kickoff from Blake Hawbill. Andre London, we've not seen in a couple of games, and a tailback for Michigan State. They fake it to him. Rolling Lewerke to his left. Incomplete, looking for Cody White. So Brian Lewerke today, not close to what he's been the last 2 weeks. 400 yards in back-to-back games. Ohio State has held him to 77, and Ohio State deserves a lot of credit for making him uncomfortable from the start.
Yeah, a ton of credit. I mean, they've really answered the bell in coverage and the way that they've rushed, and really the coaching staff. I mean, defense coordinator Greg Schiano, they were talking about a lot of the things they're doing defensively. You get called into question when you have a performance like you do last week. Stuck to their guns, got back, coached a hard, practiced hard, and they've come out and performed completely different than what they looked like a week ago.
London sidesteps a free rusher and is toppled after a gain of 2.
The other thing is, you know, Iowa showed something that they hadn't done a whole lot this season. You look at Michigan State, Iowa, Wisconsin. Those teams kind of copy one another sometimes in the way they come out and what they present. And Ohio State's made the adjustment. They've had an entire week to deal with some of these overload formations, or as Greg Schiano calls it, unbalanced, not more in the traditional sense, but their team has made the adjustments. They've been able to come out and be much more effective with handling some of the things that Michigan State's tried to do before the snap of the football.
It's quite a coaching staff Urban Meyer's put together here. Greg Schiano in his second year said that he turned down a couple of head coaching offers this offseason to stay here. That ball is intercepted by Damon Webb. The third Ohio State takeaway of the day. And Webb takes this one all the way back inside the 20. Flags fly at the end of the play as Webb is popped out of bounds.
His third interception of the season, and he's just got vision the whole time looking at Lewerke. Lewerke thinks he's okay, but it's Webb's ability to close and be sideline to sideline as that middle of the field defender to come up with the interception. You can see at the very end of the play, it's Cole Chewins.
Foul, late hit out of bounds. Passing team number 61. Half the distance to the goal. First down, Ohio State.
Just adds injury to insult, but once again, this Ohio State defense has come up. The big play, clearly Webb out of bounds when Chewins made contact.
1 year ago, Ohio State was top 10 in the country, 27 takeaways. Came into this game with just 13 all year, and only 1 over the previous 3 weeks. Came in the final play against Nebraska, just a throw up. Kind of made an interception. Really no significant takeaways in about a month. But 3 of them today, recapturing part of what made them so good defensively last year. First down and goal, and Mike Weber's back in at running back. They're throwing end zone, and it's intercepted by Justin Lane with one hand. There's a flag down.
Pass interference, offense, number 9. Penalties declined. The result of the play is an interception. First down, Michigan State.
Wow, what a catch.
Yeah, I mean, you could clearly see him pulling on him there at the end, which is going to call the offensive pass interference. What a play by Lane that the former wide receiver converted to comeback to a cornerback.
Looking like it there. He's having a good time today. Up 48-3 on the Spartans early on in the fourth quarter. Michigan State, after the Justin Lane interception, has it at the 20. A bubble screen to start the drive, but it's in front of Rison and incomplete. We're talking about all the Ohio connections on the Michigan State roster, up and down the coaching staff as well. There are connections to this Ohio State program.
A ton. I mean, you look at Mike Tressel, that's obviously a name that's very familiar with a lot of people here at Ohio State. Mark Snyder coached my brother-in-law linebacker, A.J. Hawk, back when he was a linebackers coach here at Ohio State. Their quarterback coach, Brad Salem, his brother, Tim Salem, was a quarterback coach for Ohio State. Used to work with me when I was little.
Here's Darrell Stewart. On a gain of 1.
What a play by Worley. He got cut at the beginning of that play, kept his feet. So we get back up and make the tackle on Stewart. Just an athletic play. It's something we see typically from their defensive linemen, as good as those guys are, getting cut all the time. We see it from one of their linebackers. Those guys don't get enough credit for the job that they do. Seems like people only pick on them when they have a bad game like last week. And Chris Worley wasn't really a part of that. It was more Booker and Baker really in coverage, and neither of which are playing today.
On 3rd and 9, Ohio State still bringing it. Sokol in the flats, stopped immediately. I just want to make a correction to something we just showed. Mike Tressel is Jim Tressel's nephew, not son. 4th down coming up for the Spartans. Early on here in the 4th quarter, the punt team comes out.
Art Barker's really earned that scholarship today.
Ooh. Yeah.
He's been under pressure a number of times. He's been kicking out of the back of his own end zone.
He's been one of the lone bright spots. Not just a lot of opportunities, but some good punts. His 8th total. A.J. Hill got away from the first man and then hemmed in. Ohio State turned this one into a blowout early. It's 35-0 at halftime of this game. Antonio Williams, a short first down gain. Antoine Simmons with the tackle, and our Ford unstoppable player of the game, Mike Weber, career high 162 yards.
And he was incredible, but I kind of want to make an audible. I kind of wish we could give this to the entire offensive line for Ohio State. When you have both Weber and Dobbins rushing for over 100 yards against the defense in Michigan State that averaged only 87 per game coming into it, you got to give some credit to the big boys up front. The job that they all did leading the way for their running backs and really for J.T. Barrett as well.
62 for Weber, 124 for Dobbins, 55 for Barrett. And 330 total rushing yards for Ohio State. That is the most ever allowed by a Mark D'Antonio team. Keontae Stallworth stopping Williams here. Clock winds inside of a minute.
And for Ohio State, I mean, this is the formula. You know, you've got to win out the rest of the season, go win the Big Ten championship in impressive style, and make it hard on the College Football Playoff Committee to try to deny a Big Ten champion at that point in time.
Controlling their own destiny in search of that Big Ten title.
How about that
game? Who knows from there?
How about that game at the end of the season versus that team up north, as they say here in Columbus? Joel and Gus will have that one. That's going to be it always is a fun matchup.
And if you keep having the chaos we're seeing across college football, Ohio State wins against Illinois, that game is going to have huge implications, perhaps in the postseason picture. That does it. Ohio State over Michigan State 48-3. And they bounce back in a big way from one of the ugliest losses under Urban Meyer with one of the more impressive wins they've had in a while. Largest defeat of Mark D'Antonio's career at Michigan State. A 45-point domination by the Buckeyes. Bruce Feldman is with Urban Meyer.
Coach, what was the big difference in your team's performance from last week to what we saw today?
Well, we ran the ball really well against a team that's very good rush defense. So I think the focus was extremely intent, and he controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball.
Your defense was out. Two of your starting linebackers today completely shut them down. How were you guys able to do that?
I controlled the line of scrimmage, and last week we did not. And last week's gone. We're going to move forward and worry about the Illinois next week. Control line of scrimmage, usually win the game.
How important is it for you guys to win games like this, to be dominant, have blowouts, to impress the committee?
Just got to win the game, man. That's part of the problem with college football right now is just a lot of stuff. So our focus is find a way to win this game and move on to find a way to win the next one.
All right, thanks, Coach.
No chance he was taking the bait, Bruce. Wasn't about to take it. 48-3 the final score here in Columbus. Get you back to Rob Stone in Los Angeles for more post-game coverage after these messages following a convincing Ohio State win over Michigan State. Top 15 matchup today. A lot of people thought this would be a tight one like it's been throughout the years between these programs, but from the start, the Buckeyes controlled it. and took it.